Right now, though, let's talk to Hamish Rutherford. Taxpayers will soon be spared from having to pay for the decommissioning of oil fields. The government's looking to introduce a new law to require companies that run the oil fields to do that job. Now, this comes after we had to pay $155 million to clean up the Tui oil field. Hamish Rutherford is the Herald's Wellington business editor and with us now. Hi, Hamish.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. Hey, thanks for running us through this. So what is the plan in the legislation to tighten this up?
Well, it's precisely that. It's a tightening up of the existing regime. I mean, it is framed as, taxpayers will not foot the bill for cleaning up oil fields, and they did in the case of Tui, but taxpayers are not meant to pick up the bill. But there were some loopholes exposed by the way, first of all, Tamarind came in here, and then what happened when they collapsed. So there'll be greater restrictions around, statutory obligations for cleanup, security. They'll have to put up more finance as they're going along. And the really funky bit of this is even if you sell a field and the government approves the transfer of the field to another operator, you can still be held liable. And I think that's what people are worried about, that, normally when you sell an asset and, this is a highly regulated industry, if you sell it and move on, you can use your money elsewhere. But now Megan Woods is, more or less threatening that if the same situation was to happen again, they would go back to the former owners.
Why would that be necessary? I mean, if you are tightening the legislation up so much that you don't allow that basically businesses aren't able to collapse without cleaning up after themselves, you won't need to pursue previous owners.
Well, precisely, and that's the thing. I mean, Tamarind, that collapsed a couple of years ago and left us with a big bill, they got into New Zealand through a bit of a loophole in the way that they took over the oil field and didn't have to go through the usual scrutiny. But it wasn't a loophole that caused taxpayers to foot the bill. The former owners of Tui left them with, I believe, about $30 million in cash. Tamarind, didn't leave that money aside, and then they went on arguably a reckless drilling campaign. So there were some specific factors that I think this is probably reasonably unlikely to happen again. Of course, the government, pretty justified having footed this bill that they want to tighten up the rules, but now that they're doing this, it already seems to be slowing down sales of other fields. OMV, New Zealand's largest gas provider company, is trying to sell the Māori field to a Singapore company, Jadestone. They've been trying to do that since 2019 and they still haven't got approval. So,
is that approval being withheld in order to only give the approval once the legislation's kicked in?
No one quite knows. New Zealand Petroleum and Minerals won't comment on why it's being held up, but it looks like it'll be related to the headache caused by Tamarind, because it was a bit of a mess up, the way that they were allowed to come into the country without going through jumping over the normal hurdles. So it seems like they're sort of slightly scarred by the fact and slowing things down.
Is it a fact that we just need to accept, Hamish, that, as tight as our legislation may be and as much as we put in all the things that are necessary to be able to make sure that they clean up after themselves, the fact is we only have jurisdiction in New Zealand, and if they are a company that's based offshore in a country that doesn't really want to play ball with us, tough titties.
Well, to an extent, yes. I mean, we do get to approve who comes in here. But the other thing we need to remember is we need to attract more capital to find more gas or to develop more gas. And if they make the system, I know the government doesn't seem to want the oil industry here, but we do still need the gas to keep the economy running. If they make it too hard for capital to come here, the current gas shortages that we already have will just get worse and worse, and eventually industry will just run out.
Yeah, and so does this look to you like one of those obstacles that's likely to disincentivize people?
Well, it's already putting off sales. So I think analysts estimate we could need $2 billion of investment over the next 5 years. If they make it too hard for companies like OMV to move their capital around, that capital probably just won't turn up.
Very interesting stuff. Hamish, thank you for running us through that. Really appreciate it. That's Hamish Rutherford, the Wellington business editor, live here in Wellington.
New Zealand's best cricket podcast, On the Front Foot. Join the voice of cricket, Brian Waddle, alongside former New Zealand cricket captain Jeremy Coney, as they discuss and dissect all the latest news from the cricketing world. On the Front Foot. Listen and follow on iHeartRadio. News Talk ZB.